Yeah, so I welcome all of you to this special episode of Read with a Teacher. And this is such a big thing that in the last episode of this year, we have a wonderful panel. And with us, we have Shailen Sharma, sir, advisor to the Director, Education, Government of Delhi. So in the very beginning, Shailen sir, I would request you to welcome our distinguished panel from across the globe. I'm handing it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Murari Jha and Chandan, two of my very esteemed colleagues for organizing this talk today and inviting me to give my opening remarks. And I think the topic that you have chosen to discuss today is a very fitting tribute to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who passed away today. His life and work is inspiration for many of us in different part of the world. So I think this is an occasion where we dedicate this talk to his life and his work over so many decades. I am particularly keen, Dr. Ajay Chaube, who is going to be the discussant of this talk today, has been my friend for many years. I've known him from the days when he was not doctor, he was just Mr. Ajay Chaube. And now today, when he would be spearheading this discussion, it would be absolutely fabulous to hear him do that. And I was also pleasantly surprised to see our own Mugdha, who was part of this discussion today. She has been instrumental in creating Delhi's happiness curriculum, which I'm sure she'll talk more about that. Absolutely delighted to have her here with us. And of course, Chandan and Murari.
ये कौन है? ना इसमें बटन है उसमें था नीचे वाले में रखा वाला.
I think somebody needs to mute. Oh, thank you.
Muted Miss Kamini.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So Chandan, Murari, looking forward to hear your views, and particularly the guests that you have invited, who I would be meeting for the first time. Gasperin, sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, from Brazil. Very nice to have you here today. And Marlena, you also, and we are looking forward to hear your views. And Thornton, for you to be there in this discussion. So I think this group of 6 academicians coming together, talking about this book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is absolutely wonderful this evening. My own introduction to this book was way back in 97, 98, when as a young graduate student at TIS, we were given an assignment to do the book review. And among the books that we were randomly assigned, I got The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So that was for the first time that I myself got to know about this book. And when I read, I would say that it was a kind of eye-opener, because it was such a reflective thing to be able to relate to one's own life, one's own education setup. And then over a period of time, that memory stayed with me. Even while working in the education sector for the last 20 years, this is one reference book that one needs to keep going back. And I was particularly able to relate to this book when in 2015-16, Delhi government started a massive infrastructure improvement program in its school. I mean, it might sound a little unconnected to you, but I found that the kind of investment went into creating the school infrastructure, not just creating a building or providing facilities to the children, but the kind of aesthetics that was given importance to struck me as the first steps towards establishing real equality in the school setting. Because we live in this part of the world where access to education is determined on the basis of your parents' ability to pay. So if you come from a slightly better off background, you get access to private schools which will have better facilities, and the government schools would be left to the ones who cannot afford most often. But that logic was turned upside down by the government, which went on to provide same kind of facility, so that children, what they study in their curriculum, should also, it should not be that the curriculum talks about equality where they are faced a situation, the kind of attention that is given to them gives them an impression that they are actually not treated as equal. So that was my own, what you say, a reflection and connection with this, with the idea of Paulo Freire. And subsequently, when we further delved deeper into it, we realized that if at the end of the school education, if we have not been able to remove the fear of failure from our children, or if we do not give them the confidence to pursue their dream, then what is the purpose of education? And that led us to create, introduced two of our most ambitious curriculum in the school education. One we called the happiness curriculum, which basically sought to build the emotional resilience among children, and entrepreneurship mindset curriculum, which basically sought to build that confidence among children that once, when they are in the schools, they are not just acquiring knowledge, they are also building the attitude and the skills required to complete their school education. And very recently, we introduced the third mindset curriculum, which is called Desh Bhakti curriculum, which is basically to act as a lighthouse, because ability to succeed, confidence to succeed is fine. But what does success itself means? Success can be many things. But what is the radar that you have to put in? What is the value against which you have to measure your success and to pursue for that has to come from some thing, and that is what we seek to achieve through Deshbhakti curriculum. So together, these three curriculums that we call mindset curriculum is basically, in my own understanding, and perhaps you all in your discussion can throw more light, give more examples onto that. But this basically is our endeavor to humanize school education, to build a confident students based on the principles of equity, justice, and excellence. And that should not be confined to just few haves, but this should be accessible to every child who is here. So that is what we seek to achieve. And this discussion, which my colleague, Dr. Rajesh Chaubey would be moderating, I look forward to understanding more from you all that how we can create a society which actually believes in the principle of justice and equality, and what more we can do in our school system. So thank you so much for agreeing to have these conversations, and we all look forward to hearing your views on this very important matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a fantastic opening remark, and you set the tone. I would also like to highlight here, because three of our Fulbright colleagues are here on the panel from different parts of the world. We often share our challenges and opportunities. So when we tell the stories that how we are facilitated, how we are promoted and supported, they really feel mesmerized. So today I want to tell them to see the face, the person behind those facilitation, those support, those promotion that we guys get as a Fulbrighter from this Department of Education. Otherwise, they keep wondering that how you get so much of support. So here is the face, Shailendra sir, who is always there with all of our initiatives to support us. So thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to come here and giving this fantastic opening remark. So friends, the panel was imagined today to, as Shailendra sir mentioned, even I remember the first time I came into contact with this book was at TISS only, in the similar fashion, when we were given an assignment. And I was wondering at the same time that even I have done B.Ed also, so why I was not exposed to this book while I was doing B.Ed, and why not even earlier, perhaps? So why somebody has to travel to TISS to, get exposed to such kind of books, which really transforms the way one thinks. So it has been fascinating, reading that. It cannot leave you like any ordinary book. It really changes the way you think. So it inspired me a lot, and I have heard a lot of conversations. So me and Chandan just thought of that if we could trace the journey of Paulo Freire, who has so deeply influenced the educational discourse across the globe. So his journey starts from Brazil. So from Brazil, we have Gasperium Ramalho, a Fulbright scholar, and we would really love to learn from him that how the country celebrates Freire, and now can he see some footprints of education. We'll come back to him in a short while. And then during his exile, he spent around 5 years at Chile, working with the Agrarian Institute in Chile. So we have another Fulbright scholar friend, Marlene, from Chile, and some very interesting incident has happened in her country. 35-year-old guy has become the president, who has been an student activist and was basically enthusiastic for education. So we'll also know from Marlene that how Freirean ideas of equity and voice for the disadvantaged people is taking some root, particularly in the new circumstances there in Chile. And then we have Thotan Niharika, who is working in the rural parts of Telangana and trying to empower the students and give some voice to them. So we'll listen from her also. And the very important aspects of Freire's journey is from United States, where he worked for many years as advisor to Harvard School's Graduate School of Education. Our own friend Mugdha has recently graduated from there, and she agreed to be the part of this panel. So she will be sharing her experience, that how Graduate School of Education at Harvard is still promoting the idea of Freire. And then we have the Freirean thinker, Dr. Ajay Chaubey, with whom we will be discussing some pages of the book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So that's how the panel has been designed. I would just like, as the idea of the program is read with a teacher. So I would just take 1 or 2 more minutes using the word of Freire, that how this whole dialogue, which we are the part of, and how the Freire has put it in his own words. So I would use 1 minute. So the importance of dialogue, and Freire writes, if I do not love the world, if I do not love life, if I do not love people, I cannot enter into dialogue. On the other hand, dialogue cannot exist without humility. The naming of the world through which people constantly recreate that world cannot be an act of arrogance. Dialogue, as the encounter of those addressed to the common task of learning and acting, is broken if the parties or one of them lack humility. How can I dialogue if I always project ignorance onto others and never perceive my own? How can I dialogue if I regard myself as a case apart from others? Me, it's in whom I cannot recognize other eyes. How can I dialogue if I consider myself a member of the in-group of pure man, the owners of the truth and knowledge, for whom all non-members are these people, or the great unwashed? How can I dialogue if I start from the premise that naming the world is the task of an elite, and that the presence of the people in history is a sign of deterioration, thus to be avoided? How can I dialogue if I am close to and even offended by the contribution of others? How can I dialogue if I am afraid of being displaced, the mere possibility causing me torment and weakness? Self-sufficiency is incompatible with dialogue. Men and women who lack humility cannot come to the people, cannot be their partners in naming the world. Someone who cannot acknowledge himself to be as moral as everyone else still has a long way to go before he can reach the point of encounter. At the point of encounter, there are neither utter ignorances nor perfect sages. There are only people who are attempting together to learn more than they know now. To learn more than they know now. So that's the whole attempt of doing this program together at a Read with a Teacher to learn more than they know now. So the stage is open, and now I welcome Gasparian to share, the beginning, how he sees the traces of Freire in his country, the country Freire belongs to. Yeah.
Thank you again. I hope you all can hear me and see me despite my unstable connection. So first of all, good morning from Brazil, as we are in a different time zone. Thank you so much, Dr. Murari, Shailendra, and Ajay. I'm so sorry for my pronunciation. I will mispronounce names throughout this presentation. Thank you, Niharika, once again for this invitation. And it's a very special moment for me, and as a Brazilian, to be here with other people from different parts of the world, talking about a person that I think that is universal, right? So Paulo Freire is definitely a universal character. And it's very good to know that people are reading Paulo Freire, especially in a moment when we all need to be more connected as human beings, in a moment when we all need to be more sensitive to the social issues that everybody faces in different aspects, but everybody faces the social inequalities in different countries. So, as it has already been announced, my name is Gaspari Ramalho, and I am Brazilian, although many people think that I'm Indian, and I feel so glad because I love my Indian brothers, sisters. And I have been teaching in public schools for more than 15 years. Nowadays, I work in a college, Federal University here in the south of Brazil, the southeast, in the south of my state. And I really would like to say lots of things about Paulo Freire, but the first thing that we need to say about Paulo Freire, because when we say Paulo Freire is the patron of education in Brazil since 2012, so almost 10 years. And of course, he has been known for more than 30 years. And when the Pedagogy of the Oppressed was written by the 60s, many people already knew that Paulo Freire would change the reality of education in Brazil. He started a very famous project called 40 Hours Angicos. Angicos is a small city in the northeast of Brazil. And in these 40 hours of training, an educational training, he decided to help people that would definitely be deprived of education. People, the workers working at agricultural areas in Brazil, very poor people, and he decided to help these people to have access to education. So in this 40 hours program, he was teaching these people not only to read words, but to read the world. That's why one of the most famous saying from Paulo Freire is, you need to read the words to read the world, because all the words, they carry a social inequality that is present, that is spread all over the world. So we need to be sensitive to the words so that we can understand and act upon the world. And after this program, considering this educational training for agriculture workers, he started to teach many groups of people in different parts of Brazil. Unfortunately, as we know, because of the dictatorship by the 60s in Brazil, and he had to move, he was forced to go to Chile. And there he wrote this important, after being there in Chile, he wrote this important book that has become an important reference for education in Brazil. So reading the Pedagogy of the Oppressed nowadays, it represents something that is totally updated, something that it's not only a connection to the old problems that we faced in the past, but also the issues that we have been facing nowadays. And as many people know, in Brazil, we have been suffering with a kind of government that unfortunately is devaluing Paulo Freire's idea, in the sense that people should not be empowered. And one of the most important messages from Paulo Freire, considering the Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is empowering people through education. People will never overcome social issues, economical issues, political issues if they are not given access to education. So he does know, and he does invite us to think about education as an empowering tool. And this is something that, unfortunately, at this moment, our government doesn't want people to have so much power, because when you deal with words, feelings, thoughts, you have power. And nowadays, we have been trying to think about Paulo Freire's idea as an important movement of reaction to these ideas and seeds from the dictatorship that, unfortunately, Paulo Freire himself faced in Brazil. So one of the most important things that we should know about the pedagogy of the oppressed is, first of all, as I have said, how education empowers people. And there is another thing called praxis. So this word praxis, which is spelled Praxis, praxis. So it is a word created by Paulo Freire to say that everybody should reflect upon himself or herself, thinking about how the thoughts, how reflection changes reality. So how people can reflect upon their acts and change the society where they are. So this practice, or reflecting upon one practice, is one important contribution from the pedagogy of the oppressed. And another thing that is very important from the pedagogy of the oppressed, which is something that we can see clearly now in Brazil, is a resistance against a kind of bank education. This bank education is believed to be like, we just put information that we want people to know in their minds, like robots, like people in a bank receiving information, but they are not allowed or. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So
I
the pedagogy of the.
I just wanted to intervene that if you could just share with us that the all ideas you are talking about, is it reflected in the schools since you have been teaching for 15 years? Do teachers are aware of the ideas of Paulo Freire in Brazilian schools, and do they practice something which is non-banking model?
Yes,
If you could share
thank
something
you.
with us.
Uh-huh. So what I have observed throughout these 15 years working in public schools, for example, is that many teachers, they are acquainted, they are familiar with Paulo Freire's ideas. And of course, many of these teachers, sometimes they don't know exactly how to put Paulo Freire's ideas into practice, of course. Okay, so I could not be that naive to say that we are completely prepared to implement Paulo Freire's idea in the practice. But one thing that I have observed that I could definitely say to you is that most of the teachers in Brazil, they know that education is an empowering tool, and they all know that education represents a way of change and social transformation and things like that. And Paulo Freire has influenced the method in public schools in the sense that when we are teaching, we are not only providing students with content, we are providing people with hope, with independence, with critical thinking. So critical thinking or critical pedagogy, which is also something that we inherited from the pedagogy of the oppressed, is something that most of the public school teachers, they are familiar with. And they know that while they are teaching whatever, math, physics, English, Portuguese, it doesn't matter, they should help people to think about how this knowledge can be used to face social issues and inequalities.
Yeah,
Okay?
thank you so much, Gasparium, taking out time and connecting with us and sharing some very interesting thought from Brazil. And we would definitely like to engage more often with you about all these initiatives. So I would now request Marlene from Chile if she could also mention about the very recent development, how it is connected to education, and does she see the traces of Freirean ideas of equality, of being, the change, the agent of change, where the people believe that they are the one who brings the change. So if she could share with us how these all things are happening in Chile at this point of time. Marlene.
Yes, so from I'm also really bad at names. So as Gasperin was saying, most of the ideas that Freire developed in Brazil were very similar to the ones that he developed here in Chile, because like he had to go away like really, really fast. Then all the ideas that he developed here are really, really similar, almost the same. I could say that definitely we can see many ideas from Freire in Chile nowadays. Even now more that we have like our first, our youngest president, and he was known the first time because of school strikes, because of university fights, social issues, free university for everyone, quality education. So I would say that today we can see even better the ideas from Freire, because we have that president that we known as a student. He was part of a university, and he was fighting with other students that actually they are also somehow part of the government because they are senators or deputies. So I would say that most of us, I mean, most of schools, and I would dare to say like public schools, we fight for our students to follow their dreams. We have clearly the idea that our subject is not the most important thing, but then it is important for our students to be happy, for our students to have the tools to go out and do something with their lives. I always tell my students that I don't care if they go to university. I don't care if they work after they finish school, like right away without studying anything else, or if they prefer to stay 1 year at home and then continue studying. But I always tell them that they have to be the best in what they do. If they want to go to university and study something that maybe they will earn a lot of money, they must be the best. If they prefer to go to any store, like in the next corner at the grocery store, and they're going to work with a neighbor, they have to be the best there, because I think that's the most important thing. And somehow I can see through the country that this idea is also developed. Like somehow I would say, I've lived all my life in one city in my country. I live in Talca, so it's really near the capital. The school where I work is exceptional because from the public schools is one of the biggest in regions. I mean, not in the capital. We are in our school is the one that has most applications for entering. Like from the whole country, we have just one system that you have to go through internet, you have to apply to your school, and then like you'd randomly go to any school. Our school is the most wanted one in the whole country. So I would say mine is really, really exceptional. But somehow I can see the ideas that we have. For example, students that are, as Gasperin was saying, critical thinking. Here we apply it a lot. We want to have reflective students. So from time to time, whenever we have some exceptional dates, things we consider it's really important for students to have their own ideas, even if maybe as a personal thing is not like something that I would agree on, but it's important that they reflect, that they can see somebody else's opinion. And dialogue. Dialogue is really, really important of our in our plans, in our programs. We always try to our students to dialogue. Even sometimes some parents think that we motivate our students to some strikes or maybe to other measures that they take, but it's not our fault. It's because they are thinking. It's because they are having their own ideas. We motivate them to think and to follow their dreams, to fight for what they think it's unfair. And then they do it, and we have to support them. Even sometimes we as teachers, we disagree, but then if they are, those are their ideas, and they organize themselves. So for example, the students union here in Chile is really, really important. They are part of the school board. So they are also in any decision, they have a vote. So it's also really important that they make, they are part of those decisions, because they are part of the school. So it's like we cannot take any decision without them.
This is very interesting. So these could be seen as some of the traces of the Freire's work, that the students' union is so powerful. Marlene, one thing I can testify when you say that happiness matters, you were the most happiest teachers among the cohorts we were in the United States that I can still remember. One thing I would like to know, that you have a very young and a new president who is inspired by the Freirean ideas of education. So which kind of change you guys are anticipating now in the education sector in Chile, which is one of the most unequal society of the world, perhaps?
So it has been changing. Like I would say, for example, when I entered university, that it was not that much time ago. So we not all of us had access to university because it was really, really expensive. So apart from university, there are so many other things that you have to pay. And there is one, like we called it CAE, that is a credit given by the state. And then you have to pay like 50 years, 40 years after you finish your university, you have to pay like for 50 years. Like it's not a big amount, but you are like a prisoner of that debt for your entire life, literally.
Absolutely. So
yeah, but then
that's a big change you are anticipating. Yeah.
Yes, this has changed because now for movements like the ones that developed by Gabriel Boric, that will be our next president, and different times in our schools, like we also always remember movements like in 2006, 2011, 2015. So those are like really, really important years where students were the ones that moved everything. Even just a few years ago in 2019, we had like a social rebellion, and it was students who started it. And from that on, like from some students that didn't want to pay the subway, they just go like over the payment, like the payment things, the payment tickets, they went over them, and we could, now we're writing a new constitution. Like that's the importance of our students. Like they move, and they move the entire country. So now we are having like new policies of education. We're having like a free university in some occasions. So if you have some requirements, you can go to university without paying anything. So yes, we have had some development in those issues, but there are some things that we still have to work with. And our candidate, our elected president, definitely will work on them, because those are like the things for what he was known at the beginning.
That's a wonderful thing. I'll say that the real transformation will come when our institutions of higher education will welcome students from all walks of life. And one of the major barriers were this hefty fees, and this you mentioned the repayment options for so many years, and that actually turns them, enslave them basically. So it's a major change which are going to happen. This is really something wonderful. Marlene, we would like to hear a lot from you about what's all going, in your country in some other conversation. And thank you very much for agreeing to come right after the Christmas, partying whole night and getting up so early in the morning. So I'm really
also Sunday morning. Also Sunday morning.
Also
so yes.
Sunday morning. Yeah. So thank you so much. you can take your time now and enjoy. We'll keep releasing and your presence here for even for a few minutes. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
for the invitation, Murali.
yeah. So now we are moving to the next stop where Freire spent many years of his life, Harvard School of Education. And still, I feel that the Harvard School of Education is considered as one of the most powerful institution in the world, which shapes the educational policy across the globe. Uh, and our own friend Mugdha has studied there for 2 years. He spent a significant amount of time over there in the campus. So we would like to know, Mugdha, from you that how could you see that the Graduate School of Education at Harvard still has the traces of the Freirean ideas? Yeah, Mugdha.
Thank you, sir. From what I have heard and understood, Freire actually spent 1 year as a visiting professor in Harvard, because at that time, US was also very much linked with the Brazilian influence of not entertaining such thoughts and the kind of, especially the kind of understanding that Freire brought in terms of oppression and social justice. There weren't a lot of governments who were in favor of that at that time, or maybe not even today. So he couldn't spend more than a year at Harvard. And after that, he started as an advisor with the world of churches. I think there's a congregation of churches. So he was in the US, but not in the formal school setup, education setup. But having said that, he has played a very significant role, at least in influencing some of the very important professors who have shaped Harvard the way it is for the past few years. Um, Even though a school like Harvard is considered to be very elitist, and a lot of people think that if you have a lot of money, that is how you get admitted to a school like that. And there are very few chances for people in the normal context to apply there. But that is not true. It gives as much opportunity to somebody who does not score well in exams, who does not have, or might not have a lot of social capital or a lot of money, as it may to somebody who has all of these things. And they have a separate and even in the that is just with the admission process, but even in the classroom setting, like Freddie always said, the most important, and like Marlene was also saying, the most important aspect of education is dialogue, having an unrestrained critical dialogue, being able to discuss in the classrooms what is invisible, what has been visible till now, and a kind of wall between the teacher and the student fading away. A teacher does not always have to be a transmitter of knowledge, but also should be a facilitator of helping children learn, helping children look at the world from a social justice standpoint, helping children think of what is it that they would like to give to the society around them. So that is what by how I saw the education system being very different there than it was here. My schooling was in a convent school in Meerut, and it was very different from what I experienced at Harvard. I did not even know, most of the times I did not even know how to speak in the classroom, where especially at points where knowledge was being constructed in the classroom itself. Most of the times the professors in Harvard did not have a lot of pre-planned strategy on how they will be conducting the lesson. They would come up with the topic, and the knowledge would be constructed in the classroom itself, because a lot of students come from very different backgrounds, and they come from different social structures, they come from different races, and everybody has something or the other to add to everything that is being said, because everybody has a very rich past experience. So a lot of the times things were not happening as a lecture or as a classroom, in the boardroom, or in the form of a presentation. It was the kind of learnings that we brought together as a community in the classroom that formed the basis of our lecture. And that was the most significant part that a lot of us remember and learned from. It is learning from our peers and not from the professor who is teaching. So the role of top-down learning and one-to-many sort of teaching is what Freire questioned at that time and is still coming into vogue now in the education space. And being from the like Shailendraji also mentioned, being in the team that created the happiness curriculum, I think Freire's work can also be can also be linked with what the happiness curriculum is trying to do in Delhi schools. It is the greatest contribution I see of happiness curriculum is making learning logical. It is for the first
ऐसे
time.
एकदम नहीं हुआ जैसे आपने कह दिया मैं कर लूंगी बात
I will mute Sunita ji.
हाँ थोड़ा सा वो होता है कोई ये थोड़ी कि
Somebody else can. I can't do that. Yes, thank you. So with the happiness curriculum, it's for the first time that children have spoken up in classes. Somebody who is not the topper in the class is able to find answers and question and discuss with their teachers, because the teacher in a happiness class is not playing the role of a lecturer. She is more of a facilitator, and there is no right or wrong in a happiness class. It is the students who are questioning and understanding and exploring themselves. What is it that I think? What is it that I could have done in this situation? What is it that my friend Ramesh would have said if he were in my place? So things that are more associated to a child's living reality is what the happiness class explores, and that is why it touches the child to a deeper level than any kind of classroom teaching can. And that is the kind of understanding and learning that we need to bring in our classroom context as well, because learners need to understand their own reality and be able to shape their own reality rather than just sticking to a textbook. And one of the professors, Dr. Human Haruni in Harvard, used to do this very well. So he would not speak at all in his classroom. He would just start with a simple sentence like is for example, is education a process of banking or transaction? Is it an economic activity? And then he would let the students take over the act of learning. And it was so beautiful to witness, because when you say like when a child is reading a sentence like Ram ate a roti, it is not enough for the child to just be able to read or understand that sentence. The child should also be able to understand what is the social context of Ram, who is eating that roti. What is the kind of background that he comes out of? What are the different things that shape Ram or make him who he is? And the child should also be able to understand where is that roti coming from, who has worked to produce or make that roti, what are the different structures that have enabled that roti to come into the plate of Ram. So developing that kind of critical thinking is what a lot of professors try to do at Harvard, and what happiness curriculum is also trying to do. I can only speak for happiness curriculum right now because I've seen that being transacted in classrooms. And I think we still have a long way to go, because we don't need only one happiness class to make education the way it is. It has to come in a maths class, in a science class, in a social science class as well. The crux is being enabling students to think freely and questioning everything around them, but most importantly being aware of the social context in the classroom itself. If we only start with that, making ourselves aware of who are the people who make up a classroom, our own classroom, that is where I think real learning will begin.
Thank you very much, Mamta, for bringing such an interesting insight. I think, as you mentioned, that many people generally do not aspire to be at Harvard. I hope that soon Shailen sir may announce that some of his teachers may also go there if they, I mean, if they put that effort. So the revolutionary work which the Delhi government is doing in different sectors is leaving no stone unturned to make everything possible, which has been considered as impossible so far. So thank you, Mugdha. And I think Chandanji is trying to comment something. Yeah, Chandanji, please. Unmute, Chandanji, unmute yourself. Not audible.
I'm audible now.
Yeah.
So I second your thoughts, like, the knowledge is being constructed in the classroom, and then the bookish knowledge doesn't play a role at all. So we really try to, have those teachers around us who are keen to, create a point where the students and teachers are having a real conversation around the things they are seeing, they are feeling, and they are, dealing in their daily life. So that's a very apt thing to actually point out. And as we are here to discuss Freire's opinion about the education. He was, he has mentioned it many times that being a teacher, we have to play the role of a facilitator, not promote the jug and mug theory of education. So thank you for bringing that thing on. So over to Murari sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chandan. I really apologize from Ajay sir that I'm taking more time to reach to our chief discussant. Basically, I have got so many opportunity to interact and learn from his, and most of the Freirean word I have heard from him. So here I'm taking him lightly, but most of our audience is waiting to listen him. So I will be back to you, sir, very quickly. Before I come to you, Niharika, if you could share with us, I see and I follow your work. You have been doing phenomenal work in a rural setting of Telangana, where the children come from the deprived section of the society. So if you could share in a few minutes that how you are trying to empower them, how you are trying to give them the voice to be, an agent of change with the, Freire things from a citizen. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yeah. Good evening.
We are in an exciting time of change as schools and education start around the world to try to transform and improving learning outcomes. We must recognize that the most important change has already taken place. Our students of their view, and they can create and share and change the world. The workplace where I'm working is fueled with the growth which I'm going to change. Most of the things I concentrate in my school is girl education. The first thing I wanted to bring the girls to school is to see what they are needed much and what is stopping them to come to school because of the toilets and the menstrual awareness which they do not have. So that was the area which I concentrated in the initial days. So first I used to fight with my headmistress and all the officials that let us make the girls' toilets and what they need in those 5 days, essential things to be needed. So last 2 years, I started a project called Period Poverty. And it took 2 years for me to launch, and I'm still making these girls to give this free sanitary pads every month. And now earlier the strength was like 50, now it got to 120. So the thing much I concentrated was period poverty and the menstrual awareness. As this Ferraro said, most of the expectations which were from the LSTC educational practices and the real lives of the working class, and my friend Ramal also was stating that read the word and it reads the world. So that is main important. So read the word, what the girls want, and to come to this school, and then they'll see the world. That was I was thinking to create the awareness in them.
Absolutely,
And
that's phenomenal. Yeah, you are very beautifully you are connecting that once they come to school, then they will be able to read, and once they read, then they will be able to read the world through the word. Phenomenal.
Yeah, the Freire has a connection between teachers and students, which he always says, both learn, both question, both reflect, and both participate in a meaning making. Unless and until they'll not come up to you, or they'll not even tell. So before read and write, connect to those people. So always I put my word girl education, because where I work, most of the girls are not coming to schools, and the boys are sent to private schools or the government schools in a very less number. So I thought to bring these girls, what are their problems are arised in that way. And his pedagogy says also that you need to have an innovative thinking and have a literacy training. So first he concentrated on working culture people. And Ferrer also had done a 45 days training to them where they can read and learn. So he went to the community first instead of concentrating on the school. So you have to be connected to the community where the parents can understand what is the value of education.
We
Then
also
only they can
see,
send their students,
Niharika,
their children.
we also see a lot of your community engagement. Most often we see you being the part of the community, speaking to them, perhaps doing some activity. So yeah, I mean, Freire is talking about the kind of educator who believe that that world is not a given reality, but it's changing constantly, and it's the individual like you and me who has the capacity to bring the change. And I see that you are already in that capacity, and without having tremendous support which we educators have here in Delhi, and still you are trying to bring wonderful changes. So that we have been following your work. So if you allow, we can go to Ajay Chaubey, sir. If you want to add something else, Niharika, in the last. And I would also like to thank you that showing your tremendous cooperative spirit, that how in the last minute you reached out to Gasperium, brought him here to be the part of a panel. That is really amazing. And this is how Fulbrighters cooperate most often. So thank you very much. Would you like to add anything in the last? Otherwise, I'll welcome Ajay Chaubey, sir.
Yeah, last one I would like to tell as a maths teacher, that problem solving and creating the problems, solving methods and design thinking is most needed in the classroom.
Yeah, thank you
so much.
Thank you so much. Be with us. Yeah.
Murari sir, you are on mute.
Yeah. So we are waiting to hear now the chief discussant, whom we have already taken a lot of time. And as I told in the beginning that I have taken it for granted that since I got so many opportunity to hear from him, so I just got a little delayed. So sir, most of the word which Freire uses like praxis, banking model of education, transformative education, or most of the words we have come to know, not only the word and also how it is in the practice, seeing you in the field. So it has been phenomenal seeing you as a Freirean thinker and educator in the field, who is bridging the two worlds, the world of the academia and the world of the practitioner. So it is really amazing. So far, the discussions were around Freire and his life and his journey. We expect you to bring us to the book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Murari. Thank you. Thank you. So generous to give me opportunity to read Paulo Freire along with you. And thank you, the panelists who illuminated on some important contours of the Freirean philosophy of the pedagogy of oppressed. Let me begin with the Paulo Freire's book in general. The Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of Oppressed. I'm reading the 30th anniversary edition translated by the Myra Bergman Ramos with intro by Donaldo Macedo and published by Continuum New York 2000. It's a critical book in critical pedagogy for those who are seeking alternative paradigm in teaching subject or teaching in school and university. In the context of socio-cultural and political reality of the contemporary world, and also to transform the world and humanize the world as in terms of Freire. It is the book who would make social science, even mathematics and science, true value for the people and the community who are at the very out of the margin or marginalized in our society. It's not a book for teaching a subject per se, but it's a it concerned with the method of perceiving reality, analyzing, and also transforming the reality. I would, at the outset, I would like to underline a term that used by the previous speakers, that Paulo Freire talks about the facilitation. Paulo Freire in his foreword and in chapter 1, he underlined this very term, the facilitator, and in that's generally used in very loose terms in our the populist discourse of the neoliberal pedagogy, and that is also using the term facilitation. In this way, try to understand, and Paulo Freire always talk about the true education lead to liberation, and that's a degree to encourage freedom to pose questions and solve questions, and it's a powerful political tool. And he's the first person, he's the first philosopher and practitioner, you can say, that he's tried to connect the dialectical relations between the pedagogical action and the political action. Okay, generally the dominant discourse try to avoid the political intervention or political actions, and they try to consider pedagogical action as a political action. So this book forges a vital link between education and politics, which those of us who profess to have a radical views and want to help in one form or another of the radical pedagogical agenda of education and social reconstruction, particularly as we are engaging in the Delhi education process, your process as a pedagogic process in the Delhi school. And the importance of the Freire book is that he considered education as a process of perception, means critical perception, not the inauthentic perceptions like disadvantage. People generally internalize their inferiority as propagated by the oppressors, and analysis and discovery, and to extend the transformation. And as this is not the new approach, even if in our indigenous discourse, particularly before the colonial and colonial time, within the colonial time, through the alternative pedagogy of the indigenous people, like Tagore, like G.D. Krishnamurti, like Jyotiba Phule, people are talking about the non-banking model of the education. But goes much further than this, among other things. Freire tried to understand, to explain why try to reform the structural inequilibrium in which education is embedded. And that's why Freire characterized traditional education as based on banking model. And he used a metaphor, deposited. And that deposited metaphor, if you try to decode that deposited metaphor, like bank mein jaise we deposit the money and cash and this. So he used this deposit, and through this metaphor, he indirectly talked about the epistemic hierarchy and inequality, what is encountered in the Indian classroom, be it the classroom of the school or the university. Though we are trying to become the facilitator, but unconsciously we try to dictate and direct students and try to take epistemically in the classroom. So this is the one epistemic hierarchy he talked about. And this process, the traditional educational process, is in Freire is a morbid because this is a static, and it's a information is not generally analyzed and critically reviewed and received, do not acting towards the anticipation of organizing, and a student has lesser opportunity to organize and rearrange the synthesis. And such process mirror, in fact, we will try to look at that process mirror well the oppressive society which gone birth to the style of educational practice in the Western country or India too. And that also mirror the rigid class distinction, like teacher is having knowledge and haves not. Students are not having the knowledge, they are devoid of this, or they have some half-baked knowledge. So even more oppressive, it support that generally in the traditional typical classroom, particularly it is expected that the have-not, characteristic of the have-nots is a silence, obedience, passivity, and have some means inferiority, and they are meant to be obey and conform to the local order of the classroom. So Prere concept education is totally based on the social principle of the education and means equality and between teacher and students, and also dialectical method, and the notion that our ideas of reality are not fixed and final, but necessarily change and evolve over time. And it's central to Frere's ideas that there is no ultimate answer to a problem, only answer with a varying degree of correspondence to the reality. So purpose of education is to learn a process of comprehending that reality rather than to learn what someone else believes that reality is to be. The goal of education of individual is to develop what Freire calls conscientization or critical consciousness, हम लोग इसे कहते हैं. And it's only a process of analyzing, but it's not analyzing, but deliberating, humanizing the effect of using such a process of better understanding of this so जो method of by which the people develop this conscientization is the through two-way dialogue in which students and teachers together determine what question or problems they wish to understand and exactly how they should go about trying the investigate them. Example, patient not only reading and writing, but they Paulo Freire, in the case of Paulo Freire, but they generally generate the generative things emerge to get better, like better job, keep them being swelled by their employer and reach merchant and give children better education. And after that, investigating further to raise the deeper level of generative themes. So means it's a problem posing, means it's not the teacher who are coming with the problem and questions in the classroom, but the teacher and student together, they are and teacher is also not playing the laissez-faire style, but they are also actively engaging with his or her reflection to support the students as a significant adult in their life. So in this way, attempted to answer such question arose out of their own reality, and is in this way the passage and the trajectory of transforming the social reality emerges. And learning to read, thus the learning to read and write is you can told, one of our previous panelists told that it may be the empowering tool, but Freire always advocated about the emancipatory trajectory of the education. Okay, it's not only empowered, but education really emancipates that not only the disadvantaged, not the oppressed, but the oppressors.
Yeah. That is a very interesting axiom, that this is not to just emancipate the oppressed, but also the oppressors.
Oppressors, yeah.
Yeah. Sir, if you could talk a little about the structure of the book, because many of the people who join this program and watch us, one of the idea is to inspire people to read any of the book which we read on Read with the Teacher program. So how the book has been like organized, number of chapters,
yeah,
and
the
how
book,
different.
Yeah, the book has one introduction chapter. Yeah. Introduction chapter by what that fellow. Introduction chapter was written by the Donaldo Macedo, and very interesting interpretation. He's trying to the ideological mooring of the Paulo Freire ideas, and after that the publishers forward and preface by the Paulo Freire himself. After that, chapter 1 means encapsulates the justification for a pedagogy of oppressed. He tried to just justify why pedagogy of oppressed is emerging. And particularly, he tried to unravel and establish his claim for pedagogy of oppressed is the contradiction between the oppressors and oppressed. He tried to just, in chapter, I found him very much social psychological, and he just drawn heavily from the Erich Fromm and other Marxist thinkers and existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Hegel. So he tried to understand the contradiction between the operational and obsessed and how it overcome. और इसको कैसे overcome किया जा सकता है, how it can be negotiated. And operation and oppressed liberation, generally operation liberation not as a gift, and liberation Paulo Freire has warned the people generally parentalistic strategy. Liberal scholars try to be benevolent and try to use the parentalistic strategy to just appease the people and to just tame the agony and the means struggle of the people.
And the word he's using, the false generosity, right?
Yeah, by false generosity, by giving the gift to you. And he told no, it's a mutual process. It should be mutual process. It should be realization of that. Oppressors should realize that yes, we are exploiting, we are not, we are just monopolizing, we are just means dehumanizing. And also the oppressed should be also that yes, we are being victim of that, and so we have to fight our own game. And Paulo Freire categorically has underlined that it's not the oppressors who can liberate the oppressed, but it's the oppressed who can liberate by themselves. Okay, so this is the important one. Facilitator should try to understand that. Okay, if you are
and I when you just mentioned it, I just remember that he's also warning that the liberation is not moving from one pole to other pole, right? Oppressed becoming the oppressor, as it only generally happens.
I will read if time allow, I will read a paragraph. Okay? That's interesting point. That is the crux of the chapter 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is he talking about the mutual process, and he just introduced the means try to understand, try to establish the dialogue and dialogical process. Chapter 2 is devoted. He just begin with the banking concept of the education, and I told that I found that he frequently used the deposited and depositor metaphor to just underline the epistemic hierarchy and hierarchy among the students and teachers, and how unjustful and dehumanizing. Dehumanizing ka matlab means Paulo Freire is signifying that we consider individual students as an object, as not a subject. Subject means who has capacity and curiosity to know, to analyze, to discover, to refute, to transform, to reject. But we are not considering them, but you consider them as an object like treasure hota hai, and we feel by the information or facts. So banking concept of education as an instrument of operations, and it's like a means problem posing education. It's presuppositions, and you can say the antithesis. He try to situate the problem posing concept of education as an instrument of liberation, and banking concept generally teacher means what we try to understand. Mutual students try to be passive, try to be docile, try to be but in problem posing, it's a active process, active engagement and epistemic right of the student. So these are the means you can say the problem posing concept and the teacher student contradiction. It's reveal hota hai, it reveals the teacher student contradictions, and it's a world mediated process, and people uncompleted. It also realizes, both oppressor and oppressed realize that we are incomplete being. We are not the complete being. Okay, we are in the process of, both parties are in the process of becoming a complete human. And these are their ontological vacation, not the historical vocation. Though these occurs across the historical trajectory, but these are their ontological vacation of both the parties. And so they are in completion, and they attempt to be fully human in their mutuality and their with the dialogical and through the dialogue. Yes.
Yeah. So for many of our friends who might be planning to read it, if they are yet to read, a couple of words might discourage them in the beginning, like the word like ontology or the praxis and various other words which Freire has used. But the way he has argued the banking model of education is so powerful that perhaps there is no any parallel explanation available anywhere in any other literature. Sir, if you allow, I would just like to read one paragraph of this
Yes.
banking model.
Yes.
In their political activity, the dominant elites utilize the banking concept to encourage passivity in the oppressed, corresponding with the latter's submerged state of consciousness, and take advantage of the passivity to fill that consciousness with slogans which create even more fear of freedom. This practice is incompatible with a truly liberating course of action, which by presenting the oppressor's slogan as a problem, helps the oppressed to eject those slogans within themselves. After all, the task of the humanists is surely not that of pitting their slogans against the slogans of the oppressors, with the oppressed as the testing ground, housing the slogans of first one group and then the other. On the contrary, the task of the humanist is to see that the oppressed become aware of the fact that as dual beings, housing the oppressors within themselves, they cannot be truly human. So, जो आपने मतलब like something which you housing the oppressors within themselves is not the solution. This is what he's saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the oppressors use so many discursive tactics, okay, including the propaganda, to just construct the false consciousness among in the oppressed, okay.
Yeah.
But they consider that their dominations and their operations are legitimate enough, you know? And they are born for that. They to extent they equate with the will of the God, okay. So these lines connotes that, okay. Through these tactics, discursive tactics, they try to conceive the false consciousness and submerge consciousness, okay. Submerge means adha adhura.
Right.
So means you can say that is not fully cultivated, that don't fully means that not the true conscientization, the critical consciousness, okay. That is the divide of the, and you know what is difference between, there is a difference between the critical thinking and the critical consciousness, okay. Critical conscientization is not a critical thinking, okay. Generally liberal pedagogy is a marketized philosophy is trying to propagate, okay. If that in chapter 1 there is some paragraph that is devoted by the I think that was he was fourth yearer. Paulo Freire in 70s he visualizes that the neoliberal assault will be encountered by the pedagogue. So he just tried to manage to try to deal that with that. So paragraph was devoted for that. In this half-baked consciousness, what we try to do? We try to just try to raise the questions. We don't try to that questions and that criticality divide up any liberating or emancipatory actions. Okay. So here the role and importance of praxis emerge. Okay.
Yeah.
Praxis is not, and praxis is not, though Paulo Freire try to put this this concept in a very simple word, but as far as by this line of where he tried to define the praxis should be read the entire chapters. Okay.
Yeah. So, sir, what I would expect from you that after banking, you bring us to the problem posing, which he brings as a solution to the banking model education.
Yeah.
And then to the praxis.
Okay. In chapter 3, chapter 3, he tried to just unfold the dialogues. Okay. The essence of education as a practice of freedom, dialogics and dialogue, the search for the program content and the human world relationship, generative themes, and its methodology, awakening of the critical consciousness through the investigation of generative themes. Okay. And the various stages of investigation. Okay. So you can see that is it means the epistemic process, that is the process of mutual and social epistemology he tried to just situate as a dialogue process. Dialogue, or I found him dialogue very, very much aligned with the, and very similar and very has connectivity with the means Jam and Nachiketa discourse of dialogue and the Jiddu Krishnamurti's notion of dialogue. Okay, though Jiddu Krishnamurti notion of dialogue leads to spiritualism, but that is also a kind of consciousness. But he tried to just limited himself to the social emancipation and social field. But they have but very so in this way we can understand. Chapter 4 is try to just unfold the anti-dialogic and dialogic idiomatic of opposing theory of cultural action. Okay, and the where the anti-dialogic as an instrument for operation, and the later means the dialogic is an instrument of liberation. The theory of anti-dialogic action and its characteristic may be consequent of opinion, divide and rules, manipulation and cultural invasions. And the theory of dialogic action may be the cooperation, unity, organization, cultural synthesis and collective action to transform the bondage operations and dehumanization. So these are the chapters. Okay, Murari.
Yeah, so I think the praxis, which is something core of your work, which we have seen, the theory and practice, merging at one place whenever we have seen you working. So through your work, if you just give us the example of praxis, and then we can move towards the end of this program, sir.
Okay. Yes, praxis is it's like a jugalbandi.
Yeah.
It's a jugalbandi like tabla. Okay. Like tabla, harmonium, guitar. इनके बीच जो एक मतलब interaction होता है, तो from that, तो like jugalbandi of idea and action, jugalbandi of theory and practice. And जब ये जुगलबंदी होती है, तो the music emerges from that create the pedagogic possibilities, है ना? And the pedagogic policy for emancipation. Okay, and where the school and education will not be the means of social reproduction, but social transformation. Okay, so these are the praxis. So praxis is not merely action on reflection or reflection on action. Okay, reflection and action are two elements. They are not the dichotomy. They are not the duality, but they goes in hand. Okay, it's a really fusion where so generally praxis can be created, and that should be created by Paulo Freire itself, because he was the practitioner theorist. Okay, he was the practitioner theorist. So he tried to create that fusion. So means that is his praxis is not the praxis like Marx and other classical Marxists. So this is the and I think you all are doing this. You are all actualizing this process. Okay.
Yeah.
We are all using the praxis. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the way not only students and school but teacher can be liberated. Okay.
Right.
Because teacher are also been oppressed by the bureaucratic system. Okay.
Yeah.
And we try to, and we try.
Chandanji, please see.
Though we try to liberate and empower the teachers, but that empowerment is very means we can understand that empowerment in the light of the chapter 2 discourses created by the Paulo Freire in chapter 2. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a half bit. Okay. Like a critical thinking, marketized of the Paulo of the. Okay.
Right. What I feel that the kind of intensity that brings this book and for the format of this program doesn't fit to each other. So I would appeal to most of my friends who are here and those who are planning to read, that they must read it and then come into the contact of Dr. Ajay Chaubey sir in a small group, sit with him and talk about the various theories and the frameworks which Freire has presented in this book. That would be really emancipatory, and this is the opportunity we have availed several times. I think this is what we were discussing also, Travisher, before coming to this program, that this is what we can propose to all our participants here. So anything in the last you would like to comment upon, Travisher?
Yes, I would just say, give some inputs and some you can say the tricks.
Yeah. We lost your audio, I think. There may be some technical issue. Yeah.
I think he has internet issue.
Okay. So I think we took more than the usual time at Read with a Teacher this time, because we have a wonderful panel today, and we'll again bring back Sir at some other discourse. We keep getting opportunity to engage with him, and we'll engage with him again. I'm thanking all the panelists. I think Niharika ma'am wanted to say something quickly. Niharika ma'am, if you want. Yeah.
Actually, when I was going through the book, I could just concretely see that his pedagogy begins with the teacher mingling among the community, asking questions of people and gathering a list of words using their own daily lives, which is most important. And the teacher has to understand the social reality of the people and develop a list of generative themes, which could lead to a discussion in classes and cultural circles, like making relevant to the lives of the people and social construction of reality might be ethically, critically examined. And his experiments of the workers were taught and read and write in just 45 days. And as a result, Brazil got a setup of cultural circles, but military coup could halt it, and which work later has changed his life. His famous book on pedagogy of the oppressed was not entertained initially, but after 1974, worldwide it was recognized.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing it to us. So I would like to thank all the panelists for being the part of this program, and special thank to Shailendra sir that he took out such precious time, and he remained with us through the whole program.
I think sir has something to say here.
Yeah, sir.
I'm absolutely delighted to hear this conversation, and I think this kind of talk should be organized more regularly, and we can have like more engagement, more discussion, more, I think, fight, I would say, on this matter. It should not have to be strict, because there are so many different perspectives on it. We can bring more examples from our own context to support or contradict any of those ideas, because the last part which Dr. Ajay Chaubey was talking about, that praxis, is something which is key, and we are at a very advantageous position to kind of say, not just reflect academically, but also as a practitioners, we can see where we are based and what opportunities we have, what challenges we have, and how we negotiate those to bring a better school for our children. So I think I'm super impressed, and I'm looking forward to more such interaction. I'm again thankful to all the panelists for having such a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us the very right direction that where we should take ahead it, and particularly we should bring the differing perspectives where one can agree and disagree, bring more examples. So this is what we'll do, and we'll definitely engage more on such discussions. So thank you very much.
We got Ajay sir back with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are stopping the live here, and our friends will be here to ask some of the questions from Ajay sir. So Ajay sir, be with us. So thank you, friends who joined on these programs. We'll be back again in New Year now with another exciting episode of Read with the Teacher. Thank you, everyone.